Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. The finale of Loki is here. I've really been looking forward to this episode because for the most part, I've enjoyed every single episode so far. They have been kind of inconsistent in quality. They've been all over the place. Some of them have been great. Some of them have been pretty weak. So before I tell you guys what I thought about the finale itself, tell me down in the comments, what did you think of the finale of Loki and what did you think of the show as a whole? With that said, let's get into my spoiler review, and yes, it does contain spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode, watch it, then come back and watch this. So for the most part, I thought this was a good enough but an underwhelming finale. What I mean by underwhelming was it got a little too talky. I think there was a little too much talking. There wasn't enough action, but I do think that it was a satisfying conclusion, answered all the questions in a way that made sense, and left some threads hanging to continue in other movies or the second season. Of course, we are getting a second season at the end. It said that, and I'm excited to see where that whole thing goes. But it just delivered on what I wanted. But I do think it could have been better in terms of the pacing, action, and just be more exciting. Now, I really enjoyed seeing where Loki and Sylvie's character arcs went in this episode. I really appreciated that. The stuff in the TVA was really cool. And the big reveal was also really fun, in my opinion. Of course, you kind of see Loki and Sylvie kind of talk to Miss Minutes at the beginning. And that was a really good scene, in my opinion. It really showed their character development. Because Miss Minutes tells Sylvie and Loki that both of them can have the lives that they dreamed about. But they know that that's all fiction. That's not actually real. So they say that that's all fiction. We make our own destiny now. And that really just shows you how far their characters have come from the previous episodes. And I really appreciated that. Of course, in the TVA, you have Mobius going to Ravonna. And then we also see a lot from Ravonna. There's this one scene where Ravonna asks Miss Minutes for some files, but Miss Minutes gives her some other files, and for some reason, this changes Ravonna a little bit. She goes in search of free will. She walks through a portal when Mobius is there, and she says, I'm gonna go search for free will. And that's just such an interesting thing, because in this episode, you also see B-15 telling all the other variants, all the other TVA agents, that they are variants, and she shows them that Ravonna is actually a variant that was brought in from the timeline. So I enjoyed a lot of the stuff in the TVA. It was interesting and it worked really, really well in my opinion. And then of course we get the big reveal with Loki and Sylvie. We see that the big bad has been Jonathan Majors, Kang. Jonathan Majors is the actor, and I knew that he was playing Kang in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, I think the third one is called, and we basically saw him in this episode, just a different version of him, and this was actually really fun. I thought this was a nice way to kind of introduce Kang into the MCU, but also when you watch Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, if you haven't seen this show, it would still make sense because technically it's not the same Kang. And basically the rest of this episode is just them sitting in a room and talking. And this is where it kind of started to lose me. I was like, it just got really boring, and it didn't work that well. It felt very anticlimactic. I do enjoy the stuff that they were talking about, because Kang tells them that he is from this alternate timeline, and basically he discovered that there's alternate timelines, and he started interacting with them. And at one point, some of the people started conquering the alternate timelines, and this caused a multiversal war, and this guy stopped the multiversal war using Alliot. So it's just so interesting to see where this all came from, but I would have liked to actually seen it in the show instead of them just talking about it, because it's really important for me to understand everything, and I would have rather seen what's going on because it actually looked really interesting. That made the episode kind of slow down a little bit. It got me bored for a second because I was interested in what they were talking about. I was listening to them, but it just didn't work because I would have rather seen it. That's what I was thinking pretty much the entire time. But what I also thought about was that this is pretty much the same story that we heard in the first episode with the animation thing, but it's just told in a different way. This time it's all Kang's, but in that one, it's the timekeepers and stuff. So I enjoyed like the similarities between both the stories that they told us. And then basically Kang gives Loki and Sylvie a choice. He basically says that either they can take over him and work as the people controlling the timeline, or they can kill him and cause a bunch of other alternate realities where everything would just branch off, cause another multiversal war, and there'll be an infinite amount of Kangs. Now, Loki and Sylvie come to a disagreement. Sylvie thinks that he's lying, she just wants to take him down, and then you have Loki, who actually understands where he's coming from and believes him. So I really enjoyed like the disagreement that they had. It has a lot of emotion behind it because Loki is trying to convince Sylvie, but Sylvie starts fighting Loki. Both of them start fighting, and this was emotionally, it was a really good fight, but I don't think it was choreographed really well, and it just ended at an awkward note where both of them kiss, but it's kind of weird because they're variants of each other. I'm still not sure how I feel about their relationship, but anyway, Sylvie opens a portal, kicks Loki out, and sends him to the TVA, and she kills Kang, and once she kills him, he says, "I'll see you soon." And that's just such a great line because you know there's more Kangs coming, and these versions are going to be much more evil and actually be the bad guys for the rest of the MCU. And I'm just interested to see where all that goes. And then you cut to Loki in the TVA, and he's just really sad because Sylvie thinks that he's just trying to take over the timeline, control everything. But that's really not what he wants. He actually believes Kang, and he thinks that what he's doing in a way, in a weird, twisted way, is the right thing. And I really enjoyed the philosophy of it. I think that's what made me enjoy this show a lot. I loved the philosophical conversations that it got into the MCU, and it worked really well. So anyway, Loki goes to Mobius and B-15 and tells them about everything that happened. And once he says everything, Mobius goes, "Who are you? Are you an analyst? What are you doing here?" And then Loki's like, "What? You don't remember me?" And he looks up, and instead of seeing the statue of the timekeepers, he sees a statue of Kang. And a lot of people may be confused. The first time I saw it, even I was confused. And I thought it was like an alternate timeline because in the MCU, the time travel rules are like change in the past creates an alternate timeline. But no, the TVA exists outside of the timeline. So basically this time, after the multiversal war, Kang did not lie to the TVA about the timekeepers and everything. He actually told them that he was in charge and he created all of them. So that's just interesting. I loved how everything played out, and basically this guy, I think this Kang is going to be our big bad in the MCU going forward for the next few movies. I also loved that this was the show that kind of set up the multiverse because Spider-Man Far From Home told us that it was going to do that. It didn't. WandaVision told us that it was going to do that with Quicksilver. It didn't. But this one actually introduced the multiverse, and we're going to see where everything goes in Spider-Man No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. And of course, Kang is the villain in Ant-Man 3. So I really, really hope that everything comes to a satisfying conclusion. So like you just saw, I'm really positive towards this episode, and that's not because I like the episode in general. Most of the stuff I liked, but I thought it was a really slow, really underwhelming finale. I feel like if this stuff that they were talking about was done in episode 5, here this could just be the big epic episode with like action and just have a lot more stakes. Again, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it for the most part, but I think they could have done a better job with some of the stuff that they did. I think what this episode did well was get me more excited for what's coming than just me liking the episode in general. But overall, I thought Loki was a really good show, and this finale just ended off, for the most part, on a pretty high note. And I'm excited to see where this whole story goes. I'm excited to see season 2. I've really enjoyed this series and all the Marvel Disney Plus shows. Maybe this one is not the best one. I'm not sure yet. I'll think about it for a while, then I'll know. But overall, I enjoyed it. Tell me down below in the comments, what did you think of Loki? If you enjoyed my review, be sure to leave a like. It really helps me out. And subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I'll see you next time. Bye.